This podcast is a part of the Podmania podcasting network. Check out podmania.co.uk to check out more of our great podcasts, features, reviews, match ratings and previews spanning the crazy and diverse world of professional wrestling.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Wrestling with Johners. This is episode 87, and it's a special WWE pay-per-view review. We're covering TLC, which was on Sunday night. You can watch it on the WWE Network, and I'm going to be covering it with our special guest, Jason Lee Wood. But before all of that, as I like to do at the beginning of every single episode, is to throw out our social media plugs so you know where to find us. Reach out to us, ask us any questions, and just simply say hi. You can find us on Twitter, first of all. Our Twitter handle is @withjohners_pod. And of course, on Instagram, our Instagram handle is wrestlingwithjohners, instagram.com/wrestlingwithjohners, and go ahead and find our fun, friendly, interactive Facebook community page. Wrestling with Johners is what you're looking for there on Facebook. Be part of the group there on Facebook. And of course, if you enjoy listening to this podcast, please don't forget to hit subscribe so that you can be notified every time a new episode drops. You can find the Wrestling with Johners podcast on all popular podcasting platforms, including Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and of course YouTube. So please spread the word and give us a follow on all of our social media pages and subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channels. So I want to introduce somebody that we've had on the podcast before. I think it was September when Jason was last on the Wrestling with Johners podcast, and he reached out to myself after that recording. He said, "John, I'd love to be on the podcast again, but can I review a pay-per-view?" And of course I got in touch with Jason, and we agreed on covering WWE TLC. So Jason Lee Wood, good evening. How are you, sir?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Very good. Great to have you back on the show. Really good to have you back on the show. So we're going to be talking all the good, all the bad, and all the indifferent from TLC from Sunday night. And overall, it was a bit of a mixed bag. And I can't wait to talk about all the highlights and all the lowlights. I know that it's received mixed reviews online. If you've read any reviews or listened to any reviews of TLC, I'm sure that you're going to get some good and some bad. And I can't wait to cover all of them good and bad moments with Jason. But first of all, Jason, great to have you back on the podcast. Now, one thing that I'm quite intrigued about yourself and kind of following you on Facebook as a Facebook friend, you're very much into your films and you're very much into your movies and going to the cinema. And occasionally you do drop a cinema review, a film review. You obviously love your films. Now, I worked in the cinema industry for 17 years up until quite recently. Absolutely. I was a cinema manager for 17 years from 2002 through to earlier this summer. And then I changed career. So for all of that time, I could watch any film whenever I wanted, free of charge.
That's great, really, isn't it?
When you worked 40 hours, 50 hours sometimes a week in a cinema, the last thing you wanted to do was to watch a film afterwards. You just want to get home and have a nice cold beer. But you obviously love going to the cinema. You're a big film fan, a big cinema fan. So tell us about some of the films that you've seen recently. And I know that you do your Facebook reviews, don't you, Jason?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's like a public service. It feels like. I review. I go to the cinema quite frequently. Now I've got a newborn. It's not as frequently as I would like, but you've got responsibilities. But I try and go at least once a week. I've got one of those unlimited passes, so I can go whenever I like. And I just recently saw actually. Any time The Rock's in a film, I'll go see it. I just seen the latest Jumanji. It's the first time actually I was disappointed in a film with The Rock, and it's the first time ever I've walked out of a cinema.
I did read that, Jason, and I was quite surprised. But it sounds like Yeah, it sounds like the first film was a kind of an unexpected success, and it did very, very well worldwide. And it was kind of a bit of a Christmas blockbuster a couple of years ago now, I believe. And it was a very good film, and obviously it was a reboot, a reimagining of the original Robin Williams Jumanji from I think it was probably the early to mid 90s, wasn't it? So a good 25 years ago, the original Jumanji. Yeah. And it was an excellent film, but then I have also heard mixed reviews about the new Jumanji. It's got Danny DeVito in there as well, and I know that in the first film, the characters that we know and love were kind of computer generated characters, or computer characters, that showed, Dwayne Johnson and various others, and they were school kids, weren't they, playing Jumanji at home, and they got sucked into the computer game. Now tell us a bit of an overview of this film and some of the differences, and you might not be able to tell too much because, as you mentioned, you walked out, Jason.
Well, I mean, I got to 40 minutes, but the premise is still the same. There's still avatars of the other world. But the twist, and which is meant to be the hook, is meant to be now The Rock is no longer the young lad who's discovering himself. He's actually Danny DeVito, which on paper, I'm sure somebody thought this will be hilarious. This will be, and you thought, that 5 minutes, it will be funny, but there's no way you can make this work for an hour and a half because it's just really frustrating and boring, and I mean, and the same goes for Kevin Hart. He's playing Danny Glover, and then they swapped over. The girl's still the same. The ginger-haired girl is still played by Karen Gillian, who plays Nebula in Guardians of the Galaxy. But the black lad is now Jack Black, so he is at times trying to be a black lad, which in times is probably on the edge of maybe being a bit dodgy at times. Yeah. But to be honest, it was just more about that you had about 10 minutes of material that someone wanted to spread over an hour and a half, and it was just mind-numbing by the end. There was only me, and there might have been 2 other people in the cinema, and so it's really awkward when you want to walk out of a film when it's nearly empty anyway. It wasn't like it was full, so it did draw attention that we were like, this is not working, this isn't. And so I mean, I always go to the cinema with my dad. That's one of our things we do. Some people go see football or go to the pub. That's what we do. And we looked at each other, and we hadn't talked about what we were both thinking. We looked at each other and went, "Oh, shall we sack it?" And we went, "Yeah, let's just go." And so that was it. And that was disappointing. I mean, I'd seen Knifed Out. I saw that last week, and that was wicked. Really enjoyable film. And I've seen a few others, but that was just, it was so disappointing. And I will pretty much watch The Rock do anything. If he decided to pick up the Yellow Pages and read it, I'd probably watch that. But this was just one of them where I was just like, man, this is just not. And I mean, at the end of the day, if you make $1 billion for a film, you're going to get a sequel, aren't you?
Yeah, nowadays definitely ought to.
Yeah, that is the kind of like, I mean, maybe not. I don't know if it was $1 billion, but it was a heck of a lot of money, and everyone was surprised because it was funny. But this one was just like, lightning doesn't always strike twice, and that was it really. It was you flogged this horse and you can't do it anymore. Somebody else go see it. If you disagree with me, fine, I can live with that. But I'm not in any rush to see the other 40 minutes or whatever it is. I can deal with that.
It might have explained why there was only 4 of you in that screen to start off with, to be honest with you, Jensen. But another film I want to talk to you about. Now, I've been a lifelong Star Wars fan, So are you looking forward to the latest Star Wars, which comes out fairly soon, doesn't it? Is it The Rise of Skywalker or something like that? But are you looking forward to it, Jason?
Yes, absolutely. And definitely patiently waiting that quite impatiently. There's a cinema near where we are, and it's a bit unusual that they actually have a Papa John's in the cinema, and you can order a pizza to your chair. So we always do that every year. Me and my dad go see a Star Wars, order the pizza to our chair, and just sit there enjoying that and it's quite a fun experience, that one is. But totally looking forward to it. I've really enjoyed all these new Star Warses. I know some people have been quite disappointed by them, but I love them. I think they're great.
Yeah, same here. And I probably won't see it on the week of its release. I think I might wait for it to calm down a little bit, then go with my family to our local cinema down the road. But definitely looking forward to that one, to see how they kind of cap off this 40 plus years of Star Wars franchise. And no doubt there'll be more. I mean, you've got the Mandalorian series on the Disney network now, and I'm sure that we'll get to see that in the UK at some point. I may have seen 1 or 2 episodes, but I don't know
how. It just happened spontaneously. I have no idea.
That's right. Just appeared on my TV one afternoon. But yeah, so lots of good film product to come out for all the families looking for something to do over Christmas and New Year. And I know the cinema business is always busy this time of year with all of its big releases. But just to touch upon 1 or 2 podcast episodes that's going to be dropping on the Wrestling with Johners podcast very, very soon. So besides this one that I'm recording with Jason, on Saturday the 21st, so this coming Saturday, you'll be presented with a very special pro wrestling end of year awards show where I'll be joined by Ditz from Ditz on Wrestling, a very popular YouTuber and podcaster and Twitterer, you could say. Myself and Ditz will be announcing the winners to our 25 award categories. So if you haven't had a chance to, if you haven't voted yet, that you can do, just simply go to the link that will be, it's going to be part of the description to this podcast, wherever you're listening to this. So go down to the description and click on the link there. I'll read it out. It's not very inspiring, the kind of the link or the web page, but it's bit.ly/WWJ Awards. But of course, click on the link that will be part of the description to this episode. And yes, voting comes to an end fairly soon, so get your votes in soon. And then we've got on Boxing Day, I'll be dropping a very special episode that I've already recorded. It's an interview with Coastal Championship Wrestling superstar Charlie. So that's kind of one episode to get you listening to over the Christmas and holiday period. I know a lot of podcasters don't tend to drop much material over Christmas and New Year, but I will be dropping that episode on Boxing Day, as a matter of fact, the 26th. Then on the 2nd of January, I've got another interview coming with Big Effin' Joe, current Rise Underground heavyweight champion and a bit of a hardcore legend on the UK independent scene. And he recently wrestled in the CZW King of Death Matches tournament this year. And I think you've mentioned that you've seen Big Effin' Joe in the flesh. Have you seen him wrestle before?
Yeah. Actually. We went to a Rise tournament. Me and my mate Andy went to a Rise tournament earlier this year, and he was in the main event. It was a tag team tornado, and it was brutal. They were hitting each other with light tubes and everything. And then I did there was like a I guess I can only compare it to Fight Club. It was in a basement. There was no rules. It was just 2 guys beating each other up. And Joe wasn't the competitor, but he was watching. He was stood next to me. This is all on YouTube, this video is. And he looked as terrified as I was watching this match. He did not know what was going on, just the same as me. I was like, this is mad, this is. And he looked at me and he just nodded. Partway through, he says to the rest of you, he went, that was the greatest thing we've ever seen. Jim Cornette hates you. Which I thought was quite a funny comment to make. But yeah, it was really cool. But I did see the CZW match as well, and I mean, I think he took a powerbomb through a glass table. He's pretty, and he's got a fantastic look. I mean, it's daft. I mean, it's pro wrestling. He walks around in Y-fronts and a shirt, so he either looks like a big baby or he looks like some kind of serial killer. He straddles that line. But when it's all covered in blood, it does look terrifying. It looks brilliant. And I mean, I can't see how he hasn't, for saying the Necro Butcher got as far as he did, I can't see how Big Effin' Joe isn't more popular in the States by now. He's very good talent.
Yeah, so I'll be recording with Big Effin' Joe on 2nd of January, and he'll be dropping that same day, so look out for that episode as well. And then on the 5th of January, I'll be recording 2 episodes back-to-back covering Day 1 and Day 2 of New Japan Pro Wrestling's Wrestle Kingdom 14. That'll be on January the 5th, so plenty to look forward to from the Wrestling with Johners podcast, of course. So Jason, let's have a little talk about TLC. So it was on the WWE Network on Sunday night. I kind of made it. I spread it over 2 days. I watched a few matches yesterday, a few matches today. We're recording this on a Tuesday, of course. Now we both watched the kickoff match. We didn't watch all of the conversation and all of the interviews beforehand, but we did watch the kickoff match. Now this one I don't think was advertised before. It may have been, but this was a bit of a surprise to me to see these two on the card or on the kickoff at all. And it was Andrade with Zelina Vega going up against Humberto Carrillo. So this was quite a fun kickoff match, you could say, with Andrade having much of the offense. However, Carrillo did bust Andrade open with a kind of a bit of a wayward kick just above his left eye, I believe. There's one spot in the match where Andrade had Carrillo hung upside down in the ropes before Andrade came crashing down from the top of the corner post with a devastating double foot stomp, sending Carrillo hard onto the ring apron and then down onto the floor. So that looked pretty brutal. Carrillo did, however, win the match with an avalanche reverse Rana, followed by a moonsault to get the pinfall victory over Andrade. And after the match, there was further dissension between Andrade and Zelina Vega, which will almost certainly lead to the inevitable split between the two in the coming weeks, no doubt. So give us your thoughts on this kickoff match. I mean, to be honest with you, looking at the entirety of the TLC card, it probably wouldn't have been out of place on the main card, to be honest with you. But I thought it was okay for what it was. It was one of the highlights of the evening for me anyway. But what about yourself?
Yeah. Well, it reminded me of Cesaro and Mansoor, really. It was like this kind of anomaly. I mean, it wasn't advertised at all. I listened to, I know I'm talking about Cesaro, but you get where I'm going. He said to Corey Graves, he says, well, I've no control over the ending of a match. It's predetermined, but I can do amazing stuff in the middle of it. And I think that's where Andrade is in this moment. He's not really getting the wins for whatever reason, but he is fantastic, and I think he did his best as he could to make what's the guy's name?
Humberto Carrillo.
Yeah. I don't like the power. I don't like the Power Ranger look. I don't like it at all. I don't think he's. I think he's just a little bit. I don't know, soft. He reminds me of like a bit like the Miz, really. I mean, granted he can do flips and that, but I'm still not too impressed with the style, what he does. But I thought the match was very good, even to the point where the fans, because it's early on. Now, I can't really get my head around coming in late to a pay-per-view you've paid for, but that seems to happen quite a bit in the States, that does. I definitely want to see early matches. I paid for the whole lot.
Absolutely,
Yeah. So they come in, so they're a bit indifferent to the match that's going on. But by the end, they were cheering for it, and I think even they got "This is awesome" part way through. Because that finish where he took those two moves and that moonsault was superb. I mean, I think he made him look like a star. It's a mental decision to separate Andrade with Vega. That would just be, that wouldn't make any sense. Where are you going to put her? Because she's really too small to be a wrestler. I don't know. I mean, she's much smaller than Sasha Banks. I don't see it working. And their character, they work really well. I mean, he can speak some English, but he's not there yet. And Vince doesn't like someone who doesn't speak English. So, I mean, I think that'd be a bad idea to separate those two.
Yeah, I agree. And I think Andrade, his career started to turn around when he had Zelina Vega paired up with him on NXT as his manager or his valet, and she even gets involved in some of the matches. But I think that's kind of where it's gone a bit wrong for them recently, where she's got involved, and it's kind of led to Andrade being defeated off of one of her moves. But I also think it will be a mistake to separate the two of them. It looks like that's the way it's going to go. So what the future holds for Zelina Vega is unknown. Andrade, once again, his English isn't the strongest. I'd like to say let his wrestling do the talking, but you know what WWE are like. They like a guy that can talk and cut a promo in the ring. So not having that mouthpiece next to him could be a danger sign, to be honest with you. So we'll have to see what happens there. Hopefully, the fact that they're giving them some airtime and a bit of a storyline, hopefully that leads to something positive for both of them. But at the moment, I've got kind of the warning flags up, to be honest with you. And so all the warning signals are going off in my head, making me think that this isn't going to be a good decision. So I'm intrigued to see what they do next. Hopefully it's good, but knowing WWE's history, I don't know how it can end up good for either of them, to be honest with you.
No, and I mean, if you look at history, there's very few acts, like double acts that aren't tag teams, where dropping the person that supports them improves that person. I mean, Brock Lesnar didn't like it. That's why they put Heyman back with him. Bobby Lashley now has a different person with him because he's got no personality. You start listening. I mean, AOP needs somebody else as well. All these acts need somebody to support them for a reason, and there's nothing wrong with it. But well, Vince McMahon seems to not like the idea of it. I don't really get it, but okay.
We will see what happens there. I've got it in the back of my mind that maybe they could do some sort of pairing between Andrade and Charlotte, because they're a real life couple, and they could kind of play that off on TV, similar to what they did with Seth and Becky. And
that worked.
Well, it didn't, did it really? But I'm just kind of spitballing here. I'm spitballing, but I just want something positive for Andrade, because I think he, with his fantastic talent, he deserves so much more. And that's where I've got two sets of fingers crossed here for Andrade. But going into the main show then, Jason, the opening match on the main card was the New Day versus the Revival. So, of course, the New Day, the SmackDown Tag Team Champions. And this was not originally a gimmick match, but I think they introduced the ladder match gimmick to it partway through the week. So this was a solid opener with some really good use of the ladders from both teams. Big E went for, and he failed a big splash on Wilder. Wilder was laid out on one of the ladders on the edge of the ring, and Big E crashed and burned on that one. In one spot, Kofi was climbing the ladder before Dash and Dawson tipped the ladder. But Kofi managed to step onto the top rope, bouncing his way back off the rope with a tornado DDT on Dawson. That was pretty good. Typical Kofi Kingston sort of daredevil move there. We saw Big E then launched himself through the ropes, spearing Wilder down through the ropes and to the outside. That's one of his kind of key spots. I'm surprised he hasn't kind of blown an injury or a shoulder out from that move, but he does always land very, very hard. Then
didn't he?
Yeah, he really does, and I'm surprised they haven't kind of told him to calm down on that move, because he does seem to injure himself more than he does his opponents. Then in another amazing sequence, Big E firstly gets suplexed onto a ladder that was breached between a second ladder and the turnbuckle before being splashed through the same ladder, so kind of a bit of a double bump there for Big E. Kingston then leaps from the ropes, landing cat-like onto the ladder in the centre of the ring. Big E recovers to drop Wilder with a big ending from the top of the ladder before Kofi nails Dawson with the contraption that holds the belts at the top high above the ring, causing Dawson to crash through another ladder, freeing Kofi up to unhook the belts and to retain the SmackDown Tag Team Championships for his team. So I think many people would agree this is one of the highlights of TLC from Sunday. And I really enjoyed this one. Great to see the Revival in a featured match on a pay-per-view. I think last time they were meant to be in a brand supremacy triple threat match against Undisputed Era and the Viking Raiders when they lost the SmackDown Tag Team Championships to the New Day. I thought this was a good way to kick off the show. What about yourself, Jason?
Yeah, I thought it was great. I mean, some of the spots were just very original as well. I mean, Kofi did this one where he slid through the ropes, and then the Revival kind of squashed him as he came down, like guillotine style. It looked awful. And then he jumped on the ladder from out of the ring. That looked so painful. They got Big E and stabbed him between the legs with the ladder. That spear you mentioned, he was like a rocket there. That's I mean, I'm surprised he didn't land in the first row with that one. And Kofi did that amazing one where he kind of the ladder tilted and he put his foot on the rope and then he bounced off and came off with a swinging DDT. Right. That reminded me. I was like, there's a reason why this guy was world champ for as long as he was, because he is awesome. And actually, I thought, was that one of the first times that Michael Cole had mentioned that he used to be the world champ?
Well, I think WWE has kind of made it firmly part of the history books, and they don't bring it up much at all, to be honest with you, Jason.
That's all I thought. I was like, I don't think I've heard them mention that. since since him losing the belt, I can't remember them mention he is a former. But Michael Cole mentioned it twice, and he said, because he says, oh, he's been world champion, but he definitely doesn't want to lose his tag team belt. So I was like, I'm pretty sure he's more upset about the first one. Yeah. But yeah, that's the first time I've really noticed him mention it. But I thought it was a very good match. I wondered if the suplex and then Dawson splashing Big E through the ladder was maybe inaudible, because I thought they missed that slightly.
Maybe.
But I thought it was, I thought it was a fantastic match. Very, very good. Very good opener, definitely.
Indeed. And it was followed by an equally as good match, and I thought possibly the match of the night, Aleister Black versus Buddy Murphy. So now this was one of the matches going into it that I was most looking forward to be honest with you. Before the match began, both men sat cross-legged from one another in the centre of the ring before Black tries to take Murphy's head off with a black mass to start the match. So that was a pretty hot way to start the match, but Murphy just got out of the way and avoided the black mass. Buddy Murphy appears to break Aleister Black's nose by slamming him face first down onto the ring steps off the ring apron. And this is the second bit of blood that we've seen in the first three matches, because as I mentioned earlier, Andrade was had a cut above the eye, and now Aleister Black has a bloody nose, a suspected broken nose. But Black catches Murphy with several solid kicks before getting a 2 count from a springboard moonsault from the second rope. Black then hits a second moonsault, this time from the middle turnbuckle, nailing Murphy on the outside down to the floor. Murphy hits Black with a number of stiff kicks to the face, and before getting a 2 count from a powerbomb. Now, Aleister Black fought back, striking Murphy with a black mass from out of nowhere, getting the 1-2-3 in this hard-fought win. So this match was really good, and I couldn't really fault it in any way. It was pretty stiff, and both guys were getting their licks in, getting their kicks in as well. The blood definitely added to the match, and as far as I'm concerned, this was a well-deserved win for Aleister Black. He came out of the match, with a suspected broken nose, but one thing that I enjoyed about this match was it was great to see Aleister Black on a pay-per-view, and it was great to see Buddy Murphy on a pay-per-view. Up until recently, and possibly for too many months now, they've been out the way, unseen, kind of not in any kind of pay-per-view featured matches at all. But it's good to see them, two very capable wrestlers in the ring, going up against one another on this pay-per-view. And definitely a thumbs up from me. I wouldn't mind seeing more from these two in the ring. Let's hope we do so. But what were your thoughts on this one then, Jason?
I think it was probably one of my favourite matches of the night. I thought it was fantastic. Aleister Black's old entrance, I mean, I don't know if you noticed, on Raw, he tends to just walk down. This was where he actually kind of came from up the ground like Dracula coming up. That was on, and then Buddy Murphy was already sitting leg crossed, and so he jumped over the ropes and they sat facing each other leg crossed, which looked very cool. Again, this might have been I don't really know. Fans weren't interested in this one at the beginning. Granted, didn't have a build, but I'm not sure if they just didn't know who the people were. But they definitely took a while to get into this one. And for saying that they beat the living daylights out of each other, by the end of it, I think the people started to enjoy it. I thought it was wicked. I really do like both their styles. I think I heard Dave Meltzer say that Buddy Murphy's just nicked all the New Japan moves. I don't care. It's great.
No, don't care at all. He does it. He does it very well. If that's the case.
And he did that. Like he did. What is it? Will Ospreay's Cheeky Nando's, didn't he? Did that loads of times. That was pretty cool. I mean, the busted. I mean, Aleister Black winning when they had that last face-off where they started to batter each other and then him knocking him down. Now, he did break his nose, but him standing there with blood and that broken nose, he just looked like a badass. And I was like, that is a brilliant visual, that is. I just hope... I mean, this is Paul Heyman, this is. You can obviously tell he likes both these guys. I just hope either... I mean, they could do a Keith Lee and Dominic Dijak and just let these guys do this match half a dozen times. And actually, that'll get them further over. Rather than simply just moving on to a different person, because I'm not sure about the Raw. I don't really know if there is anybody in the Raw mid-card who would actually help these guys progress as well as they need to, really. I don't know. Raw mid-card seems a bit late. I don't know. There's not really much to the Raw mid-card, you ask me.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing Aleister Black go up against AJ Styles. I think that would be a great match, and it will also get Aleister Black involved in maybe a title program with AJ Styles. But I can honestly see Aleister Black being a main eventer in the next 2 or 3 years. To be honest with you, I think he's got a great gimmick. He's got a great look. He's got an amazing moveset. He's good at selling. He pulls off all the emotions that's needed during a match as well. But I think he's the total package. And I think they do know what they have in Aleister Black, but I just don't quite know that they know what to do with him yet. That's the problem with him. As for Buddy Murphy, after he lost the Cruiserweight Championship at WrestleMania, he's kind of dropped off the face of a cliff, to be honest with you. We haven't really seen much of him. I think he was involved briefly in a match or two with Roman Reigns earlier on in the year. But he's one of them talents. Right. Well, yeah, I mean, he's one of these talents that doesn't get used very often. But when he does, when he is seen on TV, he's always effective and he always impresses people. But he's another wrestler that I think they just don't quite know what to do with yet.
Yeah.
Well, let's have a look at our next match. So the next match is for the Raw Tag Team Championship. So we knew that the Viking Raiders were going to be in a match at TLC, but it was an open challenge. So it was going to be interesting to see who was going to take on the Viking Raiders open challenge. Now, I probably wasn't the only one who was slightly disappointed when the OC came out as the Raiders' opponents, to be honest with you. I was mildly intrigued when this match was announced as an open challenge, but I was honestly looking forward to maybe the Street Profits coming out to relive the matches that they had with the Viking Raiders over in their NXT days, or maybe a team that we've not seen challenged for the titles before. Did you have any kind of thoughts, expectations, hopes of who the open challenge might be answered by, Jason?
Well, I don't know about hopes, but to be honest, I thought I'd heard via a tweet or something that they'd already announced this match. It wasn't an open challenge, and I was pretty sure I'd already I'd heard that it was going to be the OC, which is why I wasn't surprised. I was just more like, oh, okay. And I mean, I look on Wrestle Talk quite a bit, and they said, well, wasn't it mentioned? Because they all seem to see the same thing I did, which was, I'm sure this was mentioned somewhere. So I thought I'd heard it somewhere on one of the other websites rather than like speculation. It had actually been announced. But yeah. So I was a bit I mean that the Street Profits match would have been good. The one they did on Raw wasn't bad, but it was just quite short, I thought. And doing that one again would have probably been a much better use instead of the Street Profits backstage doing more hype promos.
Yeah, so unfortunately I wasn't wowed by this match, if I'm honest with you. The ending of the match came as even more of an anticlimax, you could say, when the Raiders managed to hit their Viking experience. First of all, they only managed to get a 2 count on Gallows, and then all the wrestlers kind of tumbled to the outside. The match goes to the outside where the fighting continued. Neither man was able to get back into the ring before the referee's 10 count, and the match went to a double count out. So the Raiders, have their music played after putting Carl Anderson through a KFC sponsored table, and this match was largely forgettable, to be honest with you. Thanks, I just didn't feel that the right opponent was up against the Viking Raiders, and I felt that it was used more as a build to promote KFC to the end, to be honest with you, as opposed to a way to promote a wrestling match. But I think this was largely forgettable, to be honest with you. What about yourself?
Yeah, I would agree with you. I don't know if you've ever heard of the TV show Chuck, but that show, the reason why I'm bringing it up is because they weren't going to do a 5th season, but they got Subway to sponsor them. Right. And every episode they had to eat a Subway, and they had to mention Subway in the episode. And I just thought, so they're actually sitting fans supposedly out in front of the barrier now that they can eat KFC in front of it. Then the bit that didn't make any sense was, well, you slam people through food. In this one, they took all the food away. I was just like, well, that was weird. I was like, maybe KFC said, no, don't ruin our food. I don't know what that was about. I didn't like the Viking Raiders promo either. I thought they sounded like a worse version of Braun Strowman, just cartoony characters. And I don't know. I was really disappointed with it. I like the OC, but I don't really understand how you can have tag team champions and then another tag team that are the greatest tag team in the world. It really doesn't work. So no, I was just disappointed by it, and then of course it wasn't going to have a proper finish, was it? So it was just a lame match, and I just thought, well, it's just a waste of time. This was, because you thought the overall goal was to break the KFC table, and get each other messy, and they didn't even do that.
That's not usually. There's a good food fight in WWE
exactly.
There's food around. So there's a good food fight, and everybody gets messy. And
there
we go. Not on this occasion, but there we go. Look, we kind of look to expect more KFC angles or promos on WWE programming. No doubt we'll see the commentators chewing on some kind of chicken drumstick in the future. But there we go. The next match is another one that quite an interesting talking point, and got a lot of people talking online, both thanks to the build of this match and also the match itself. But it's King Corbin versus Roman Reigns, and this was a TLC, a tables, ladders and chairs match. So this match started on the rampway after Roman got attacked by Baron Corbin's security guards. Roman then disposes of Corbin off the side of the stage, where they brawl through the crowd. Corbin gets the upper hand and proceeded to pummel Reigns both inside and outside of the ring, using the steel ring steps and the ladders as weapons. Corbin then strikes the big dog with a can of dog food before choke slamming Reigns through a table for a close near fall. Corbin then clears 2 announce desks and looks as though he's about to set Reigns up for a powerbomb. However, Roman Reigns is quick to transition Corbin up into a Samoan drop and drops him through one of the other announce desks. Roman then gets a bit of a head of steam as he looks to deliver a spear, kind of running around the ring. But however, Dolph Ziggler comes from underneath the ring and nails Roman with a super kick from out of nowhere, whereas Michael Cole described it a Superman kick. So obviously getting his wrestling moves mixed up there. And now it's 2 against 1. Is that the heels retrieve some handcuffs from underneath the ring. Reigns retrieves a kendo stick and goes to town on the King and the security guards and Ziggler, until the Revival come out as extra backup for the King. And now it looks like there's a dozen or so guys up against Roman Reigns. But this didn't stop there. It didn't stop the big dog from launching himself over the top rope with his big dive over onto everybody on the outside. Back inside the ring, Ziggler hits Reigns with a chair shot and a zigzag. The Revival drop Roman Reigns with a shatter machine. King Corbin then finishes the match with an end of days onto a steel chair, and the referee counts the 1, 2, 3. So despite the backlash to this match online, I didn't think it was all that bad, to be honest with you. I'm sure that there's mixed opinions on this and mixed views on this match, but I'm also sure that it will kind of lead to another poorly received rematch. No doubt the Royal Rumble, that's the next pay-per-view that they have waiting for us. But I enjoyed the booking of this match. I thought that it had a lot of interesting spots in there. I didn't mind all the heels ganging up on Roman Reigns. I think that added to the story. To be honest with you, I wasn't expecting a win for Baron Corbin, or King Corbin, I should say. But it does kind of prolong their feud, which isn't going to go down well with everybody. But I think it does lead nicely to another match between these two. But what were your thoughts on this one then, Jason?
I was waiting for Thanos and his whole army to come out, because that seems to be everyone who was fighting Roman Reigns. I don't know if you can remember Undertaker against Yokozuna at Royal Rumble 94. That where every heel comes out to beat up the Undertaker. I find Baron Corbin, to me, I know he's a heel, and maybe you could argue maybe that's the point, but I feel for me it's go away heat. I would rather not watch a match he's in. Even though I will argue, I'll contradict myself. I watched him on Backstage where he talked to CM Punk, and that was the first time I actually thought, you don't seem too bad here. So maybe you are playing a character constantly, but you make me not want to watch you. So I was so all these security guards, so that's 5 people. Now we've got Dolph Ziggler 6. Now we've got the Revival as well. And all I keep thinking is, Roman Reigns is the locker room leader, and he has no friends.
I'm thinking exactly the same. No allies, no friends backstage.
Yeah, no
poor Roman Reigns.
He came back from a serious illness and still has nobody liking him. That makes you a really bad person, that does. That's got to be a thing. At least now, fans do get involved with the hoo-ha. When he makes all the stuff, it does get a reaction. And actually, I'm not in the party that enjoy all Roman's matches. I do like some of them, but not all. Where I do think the fans have warmed to him far more. But I just thought by the end of it, I was tired of it. That's what I kept on thinking. I don't like the whole, for whatever reason, Baron Corbin always has some type of a gang, and they're not a faction, but he always seems to have a group of people. I'd rather they just be an established faction that Baron Corbin is in charge of, not some kind of, I don't know what it is. It's like a weird kind of web that people are just drawn into because they're bad guys. And that just seems to be really, really strange. At one time it was Drew McIntyre, and he had loads of other people that just seem to filter in and out. I mean, it's always been Dolph Ziggler doesn't seem to have anything other to do than support somebody else. It would have been Bobby Roode, but we know he's done for drug abuse at the moment, so that's why he's not here, substance abuse. But he would have popped in there, I guarantee that. So it would have been somebody else that Roman Reigns would have had to fought off. I just don't like it. I don't like it at all, even though I know people do. But it doesn't do it for me. And the whole arguing who's a big dog and all this type of stuff, I just go, he's not the world champ. So why is everybody competing to be the locker room leader or the big dog on campus? Or shouldn't you really be competing for the title? That's where so that's my rant over now. I'll get off my soapbox. There we go.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're almost certainly going to get another match between these two, possibly at the Royal Rumble. I don't know, but I don't think their feud is over just yet. Certainly, like I say, whenever a heel wins any type of match, you know that it's got to continue until the babyface gets the upper hand. So that's what's going to happen here, no doubt. But the next match was, besides the Aleister Black and Buddy Murphy match going into it, this was another match that I was particularly intrigued by, and it was The Miz versus Firefly Funhouse, Bray Wyatt. So although Bray Wyatt of The Fiend is the Universal Champion, I don't believe the title was on the line here. It was a non-title match as far as I was aware anyway. And for the first time, we get to see the Firefly Funhouse Bray wrestle, or outside of the Firefly Funhouse. We've seen him kind of attack The Miz in a backstage segment a week or two ago, but he came out to the Firefly Funhouse theme, and he got quite a positive response. You could say a bit of a babyface pop, to be honest with you, just despite the fact that he's portrayed as this despicable heel in the build-up to this match with everything Bray has done to The Miz and to his family. But Bray went for from the fun-loving Bray to the more serious Bray midway through the match. I think it was just he took off his jumper and then he seemed to change personality. I don't know if that's all he needs to do. With Wyatt dropping Miz with a sister Abigail on the outside and then another sister Abigail on the inside, hooked Miz's leg and got the pinfall. So it was, I think it only went about 5 or 6 minutes, to be honest with you. But the main story, as far as I'm concerned, was that after the match, the Fiend comes up on the big screen on the Titantron, and Bray says, "Okay, I'll do it." What he was referring to, we find out he fetches his Firefly Funhouse mallets from underneath the ring. The crowd start to chant, let him in, and then the lights start to go out in the arena with the creepy Fiend sound effects playing in the background. We all think that the Fiend is going to appear, but instead of the Fiend, we get the new look Daniel Bryan, sporting a bit of a buzz cut and a much shorter facial hair, who took Bray out with 2 running knees to loud yes chants before stomping away on Bray's head. So Bryan goes to use the mallet himself on Bray Wyatt, and then the lights go out again, and when they come back on, Bray Wyatt was gone. So the segment ends with Daniel Bryan doing the yes chant up in the corner and then looking down on the Universal Championship. So it looks like he's got his eyes set firmly on another match with The Fiend or Bray Wyatt for the Universal Championship. Now, my lasting memory of this match will be Daniel Bryan's return. Dare I say it's possibly more of an American Dragon version of Daniel Bryan. But definitely the yes movement is back. and Daniel Bryan appears to be back with a slightly fresher, slightly more revitalized, a bit of a new or older look, you could say, from the Bryan Danielson or the Daniel Bryan that we knew and loved from several years ago. But all of that makes me very, very happy. But give us your kind of your quick thoughts on this match and what went down afterwards.
I love the build-up. I thought it was great. I mean, harassing the kid and all the puppets being around it, I thought that was really creepy.
Was good.
Really good.
Very creepy.
Yeah, and I mean, I really enjoyed it, and the idea that it was going to be, because I like The Miz as a character, but I don't rate him that much as a wrestler, and the idea that he would be strong enough or tough enough to fight the Fiend isn't believable to me. Is he tough enough to fight Bray Wyatt, the nice guy? Yeah, okay, then that makes a lot more sense. That does, and also it means then that Bray isn't absolutely unbeatable. He's not absolutely unstoppable. It gives a little bit of an interesting tweak to his character. It's a bit like Split, isn't it? That kind of film. And
exactly.
So it worked really well. I enjoyed the match. I mean, I think there should have been maybe a potential. I don't know. I don't know how much. I'd maybe tweaked it slightly on the way that the Miz was attacking, but there wasn't really much I would argue against it. I thought it was very, very good. He lost in the way he did, which was fair. I maybe would have just simply had it be shorter. That would have been it. That Bray kind of just got fed up of being attacked and then finally just sorted him. But I thought other than that, it was good. And it's great to see Daniel Bryan back. And I could see them fighting at the Rumble. All in all, I loved it. I did. I mean, the only bit that's a bit odd is, are we arguing that how can hit the Fiend be on the screen and Bray be in the ring? I guess that was the only bit I was like, not sure what to make of this. We're not having two different people. We know it's the same person. We're not getting to that kind of category, are we? But other than that, I thought it was very good.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they're running out of ideas of how to present the Fiends, and we know that you've got Funhouse Bray and you've got the Fiends. That Funhouse Bray stays in the Funhouse and the Fiends does all the wrestling, so you can kind of understand the split personality there, the bipolar nature of the character. But then I don't want us to lead to an eventual match between the Fiend and Bray Wyatt, however they do that.
No.
Because that would be like having The Undertaker versus The Undertaker from SummerSlam 94.
No.
And that was just horrendous. And I don't want anything that might resemble anything similar to that.
No.
But I say keep them separate. I don't even mind if Funhouse Bray wants to come and wrestle like they did on this occasion. That was quite refreshing to me because I think they probably overexposed the Fiend to a certain degree, where we just needed a few weeks break from him. And I think Funhouse Bray coming out and wrestling was nice. It was refreshing. It made a change, and it was all good. But
it's funny. It was good to see him interact with the fans and stuff like that. And he was talking. It was very different. I mean, I liked it. I really did. I didn't think it would work, but I really did enjoy it actually. And I just thought, no, this is cool. I really think this works far better. And that's it. You can have him then fight people who wouldn't be up to scratch against the Fiend, and have still the champion appear on the show without it being that kind of one-sided, unstoppable monster. I loved it. I thought it was good.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I have to ask you, which belt do you prefer? Do you prefer the blue Universal Championship belt, or do you prefer the new kind of Fiend's belt with the Fiend's face on it? I'm not a big fan of that one. What about yourself?
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that one. No, I don't get that one.
Stick with the blue one.
Yeah, definitely.
So into our kind of semi-final match, you could say it was a tables match between Bobby Lashley and Rusev. Now, the only thing that would have made this match at all interesting to myself going into it would be to have had, I can think of a better stipulation, maybe to have like a Lana on a pole match, or Lana in a shark cage match. I know CM Punk suggested Lana in a shark cage. That would have been so much better, and maybe that's what they're going to do for their next match. But I felt that let's have a stipulation. Do you remember Judy Bagwell on a forklift back in WCW days, and all the various Vince Russo weapons on a pole match or whatever it was? But let's kind of hark back to those. Let's get Vince Russo back in to book this one for the Royal Rumble. But that's the only thing that would have made this match enjoyable at all. So this match and the build up to this match did nothing for me, to be honest with you. And despite several attempts to put each other through the table, we saw Rusev introduce a guardrail into the match, which Lashley actually ended up putting Rusev through at ringside. Now, whether the guard railing was gimmicked or not, that looked pretty painful, to be honest with you. It's like when the wrestlers go through a ladder, that always looked painful. So this one didn't look any less painful. Lashley finds a kendo stick from underneath the ring, which he uses to strike Rusev across the back with. And as his ex-wife Lana looks on with glee on the outside, Bobby sets up a second table in the corner of the ring, but is quickly beat down with several kendo stick shots from Rusev and a match kick as well from the big guy. Lana then comes into the ring, jumps on Rusev's back, with Lashley trying and failing to spear Rusev through one table, only to succeed on his second attempt through a second table to win the match. So, a win there for Bobby Lashley against Rusev. Similar to Baron Corbin versus Roman Reigns. I don't think we've seen the last of this one, to be honest with you. But let's put Lana on a pole or Lana in a shark cage. I think that would make it a bit more interesting for me. But what were your thoughts on what went down on Sunday night then, buddy?
Well, I mean, the fans who are in the Raw arenas do seem to cheer for this, and actually, Rusev has come out looking pretty good, actually. I now find this really difficult because I hate these type of storylines. They seldom work in my eyes, but Rusev's come out looking like a babyface. I had two thoughts. One would have been because he seems to be dressing quite like an everyday man or whatever. So I didn't think his wrestling gear matched the kind of character he's being elsewhere. And do you know what would have done it? And I think he'd have got a massive cheer if Aiden English had introduced him.
Oh, yes.
I thought that would have that was a beat that was missed there. And everyone would have just ate that up. Because the whole point, if you remember, they fell out because he said Lana was the problem.
Yeah.
And that would have just been another little tie-up of something. And it would just, that to me was an open goal that they missed. It is going to last, isn't it? All I keep thinking is now, Rusev even said on the microphone before the interview, if they get married, I don't have to pay alimony, so this is great. It was like, so why do you even want to fight? Really? You should just let them go.
You should be celebrating. You should be going to Denny's and spoiling himself. But I tell you what, I hadn't thought about the Aiden English connection, and that would have been the cherry on the cake to get him out, to sing him out to the ring, or for them to have a reunion, a big hug. That would have been absolutely amazing. And like I say, Aiden English, he was right all along, wasn't he? So exactly. He could see the warning signs. He could see the warning signals. But there we go. I'm not sure what he's up to nowadays. I think he's commentating on 205 Live. But there we go. And then we get some sort of bizarre backstage segment with the Street Profits. They're kind of talking to the camera. Then they get rudely interrupted by a brawl between Baron Corbin, Roman Reigns, the Revival. Ziggler was there. Shorty G was involved. Then the Profits start getting involved in this brawl. I'm not sure what that's all about. I've got a funny feeling we'll be talking a bit more about that brawl later on. Then we go straight into our main event. Oh, do you want to talk about the brawl? Have you got any kind of thoughts or insight into the brawl there, Jason?
Well, they seemed a load of people that should have helped Roman Reigns earlier in the show. That's all I thought.
Exactly. Where was Montez Ford and Dawkins
when he was getting earlier?
Precisely. Maybe he does have some friends after all, but maybe they just weren't watching that. Maybe that was one of the matches that they weren't interested in. So watching. They didn't know that's when they was in catering. Having their KFC.
Yeah.
There we go. So on to the main event anyway. So we got the current WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, the Kabuki Warriors, going up against Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch. So I was particularly pleased to see Asuka and Kairi Sane headline this show after doing quite a good job of establishing themselves and establishing or re-establishing the tag team titles following the disastrous reign of the Iconics, who haven't been seen since they lost the championship, which is a shame because I quite like their gimmick. I quite like the characters. But they should have used them a bit better as tag team champions instead of just a comedy act. But this match was pretty physical. I think much like some of the matches that we've spoken about already, Jason, this match was pretty physical. It went to the outside quite early on where Sane gets a big boot to the face before appearing to have a monitor launched at her head as Becky and Charlotte were clearing the announce table. So it's a bit unclear as to whether the monitor did hit her. She did react as if something hit her, but that might explain one or two of the things that happens later on in the match. Charlotte then gets a steel chair kicked into her face. Asuka then gets dropped into a chair on the edge of a ladder, so that looked pretty painful. At one point, Kairi Sane goes underneath the ring to get away from the baby faces, only to have she finds a fire extinguisher and then sets it off in Becky and Charlotte's face. That was quite a good segment. Good, Becky then gets tied to a ladder, which is quite strange. Let's not give Seth Rollins any ideas. Which is so she gets tied to a ladder, which is laid on the floor on the outside, keeping Becky from being able to help out her partner. And after fending off Asuka and Sane with the ladder and kendo stick shot, Charlotte is able to loosen the ropes and keeping Becky tied down, allowing Becky to free herself eventually. Becky then drives Asuka through a table with a leg drop, and that was off the middle turnbuckle to the outside. That was pretty good spot. Sane then reverses a double vertical suplex into a double DDT. Charlotte then appears to she appears angered after Kairi Sane fails to take Charlotte's spear properly on the outside. Charlotte even appears to struggle to get Kairi Sane up for a powerbomb through a table. So kind of wondering whether Kairi Sane might be fully coherent with all the punishment that she took, certainly at the beginning of the match, and maybe that monitor did strike her head after all. But it wouldn't surprise me if Kairi Sane maybe gets chewed out a little bit backstage for no selling to the Queen. Who knows? Stranger things have happened. Asuka then powerbombs Charlotte off the ring apron through another table at ringside. That incapacitates her for the rest of the match, I believe. Becky then goes to climb the ladder to retrieve the belt when Asuka pulls the rope that was still attached to the ladder. Now, remember, that was the ladder that Becky was attached to or tied down to earlier on. She pulls the rope and causes the ladder to fall, and Becky comes crashing down hard, putting her out of the match too. The match comes to an end when Asuka climbs the ladder and retrieves the belts to retain the championships for her and her partner, and the Kabuki Warriors win the match. So I enjoyed this match. It certainly wasn't match of the year contender, don't get me wrong, but I'm not going to go and shit on this match like a lot of other people have. But for the second year running, we have Asuka winning in the main event of a TLC pay-per-view, climbing the ladder to retrieve a championship. And once again, the match from 12 months ago featured Charlotte and Becky Lynch. So very similar surroundings to 12 months ago. But once again, the last WWE pay-per-view of the year has Asuka sitting aloft atop of the ladder with her championship belts and winning the match for her team on this occasion. So I thought this was a really good match, and a lot of people have not been so kind to this main event match. I thought it was good for what it was. But what were your thoughts on this match? But also, what's your thoughts on possibly the long-term booking and storyline between Charlotte and Becky? Because, thinking 6 months ahead, 5-6 months ahead, you've got WrestleMania around the corner. I got a feeling that they're going to obviously do what all good tag teams do and split up and feud. But could we be looking at a Charlotte-Becky feud somewhere down the line heading into the Rumble or maybe towards WrestleMania? But give us your thoughts on this match and give us your kind of booking scenarios for where we go between those two.
Oh, I hope that's not true what you just said. I liked the match. I double checked how long it was. It was half an hour because I felt like it was going on a long time, not in a bad way, but there was a couple of times where I thought this is the finish, and then it would go on a little bit further. And there was one time where I thought you probably should have finished it there. But no, I'd heard that Kairi Sane got hurt. I couldn't clock when it was. There was a suplex throw that Charlotte did into the barricade, which I thought she didn't land flush. I thought she landed sideways on her head. So if it was the monitor, if it was that, if it was a combination, I could see that. But I just thought it was brutal. I thought, cause I think I read that when they were going into the Ronda Rousey stuff, into WrestleMania, they said to each other, just lay the hits in. Let's not do any kind of, in some ways, wrestling, pro wrestling at least. Let's make sure that it's as believable as it can be, because we don't want to be in a situation where people go, nah, the women can't do it. And so I just thought they were beating the daylights out of each other. So I thought it was good. I thought the tying Becky to the ladder looked like she was like one of those women on the train tracks from the old movies. That's
the damsel in distress.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of that. I thought it was really good. I could see when they took the spear did not work. You could see that, and then the power bomb. Because I would have said Charlotte should be very easily able to pick up Kairi Singh, because there's nothing to her, so she must have been absolutely just dead weight. She must have been out of it. So that powerbomb looked brutal, and even to the point where Asuka went up to her to speak to her, who's meant to be a heel, so she was obviously concerned. And was that back suplex that she did on the outside a receipt for that? I'm not really sure. But no, I thought it was a good match, actually, and I love the finish. I thought the rope was very clever, bringing that back into it. And, I thought that was great. I mean, somebody was saying that she should have been taken out. But how would that have worked? You'd have literally just basically had to have stopped the match, because no one could have come in to switch in, and Asuka would have been 1 against 2, and she's meant to be the heel. So you'd have made a face, and then you'd have turned everyone against Becky Lynch, which wouldn't have been positive either. So there's no other scenario I could see. But if she was as hurt as she was, it's disappointing they had us continue fighting. But at the same time, I hadn't noticed that until much later on. So if I give everybody else the benefit of the doubt too, and say they hadn't noticed it, then I can see why she was still in the match. But I didn't think it was bad. I'd give it 3.5, 4 stars. I thought they tried bloody hard. It was a tough fight.
Yeah. It was physical. It was brutal. Yeah. I think you summed it up perfectly when you said it was brutal. They didn't hold back on any of the strikes. I think possibly 1 or 2 of the chair shots looked a little bit weak, but I think overall, I thought it was a really good match. And when you think, it was a contrast, in my opinion, to the triple threat match that closed Survivor Series from last month, which I didn't think was a great match. Unfortunately, I was pleased with the outcome, pleased with the fact that Shayna Baszler won the match, but I didn't think it was a good match.
No,
but this one, I thought it was a good match. And when you think back to that tremendous triple threat TLC match from last year's TLC, which was a very, very credible match, and I thought it was possibly one of the best matches of the year. When you think last year that women's wrestling was red hot, and that one was certainly highlighted as one of the better matches of the year, and it wasn't as good as that, but wasn't it kind of quite remarkable that Asuka kind of ends this year's TLC in almost identical fashion to last year's, and that was quite good, especially for fans of Asuka. And also one thing that I noted is I think we've had more than half of the WWE pay-per-views in 2019 headlined by a women's main event. So I think that's really, really good as well. I mean, certainly the Royal Rumble springs to mind, WrestleMania, let's see, last month's Survivor Series. I know that there's been some mixed tag matches where Becky's been in the main event alongside Seth, and of course this one. So I think it's been a great year for the women, and they've continued to build and build and build upon their popularity and their wrestling credentials. So good. I'm happy with the way this one ended anyway. So
interesting you said that. I hadn't really registered that over half. Yeah, you're right. Just going back to what you said about the Charlotte and Becky thing, just before I forget. That I would hate that with a passion. I feel like those two have been bound together since last year's SummerSlam. And even before that, to be honest, actually, if you go back, I don't know, they seem to have some kind of weird connection. I mean, Becky even said it on in a promo. For whatever reason, we seem to be stuck together. My take would be, if you want me to fancy book, I would say that Baszler's going to win the women's Rumble, and she'll fight Becky at WrestleMania if Ronda Rousey doesn't come back. That'd be my pick.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm looking forward to a Ronda Rousey return. I'm a big fan of hers. I'm a big fan of what she did. But I'd love to see her back. I wouldn't surprise me, because she made her debut 2 years ago at the Royal Rumble, that she kind of reappears at next year's Royal Rumble, which is only a month away, of course, and that she'll be in a featured match at WrestleMania. So Who knows? Who knows?
Mm.
In the back of my head, I'm kind of thinking a triple threat rematch from last year's WrestleMania for next year's WrestleMania. I wouldn't be surprised to see the three of them in a featured match again.
No more Charlotte.
No. You've had enough of Charlotte Flair.
She's the same. She's the same. She's now been cast as the Roman Reigns of the women's division, which is, for some reason, she has some kind of aura/title which doesn't exist, but everyone that's how they keep positioning her. That she seems to be in this same kind of constant conversation. If you're not the champion, why do you keep getting pushed as if you are, or in many ways, better than the champion? It doesn't make any sense. They should be that really bugs the living out. And yeah, so I think, can she wrestle? Yeah, I think she can. But the idea that she is pushed to the nines is exhausting. I'd rather have her just feud with somebody else. And just have a good match. I mean, the Tricia match, that is what it is. I wasn't too bothered about that. But the point is that, I don't know, just constantly in the mix. And the other thing is, if you think about it, someone was saying that actually it's only been, there's like four, I mean, it is the four horsewomen, really, who are the same women pushed all the time. I'm not saying it's bad that they're pushing women. It's excellent. But why keep pushing the same ones when you've got Asuka kind of got in the mix and then kind of got pushed back out. Now she's fighting Becky. Last year, I mean, she beat Becky. That's something. Yeah, I mean that's really important. But everyone ignored it. That got really. I can't believe they forgot about that, because that was an easy storyline to pick up. You beat me. Now after that, I'm going to get my win back because I went and won the Rumble and whatever. But everyone forgot about. Yeah. Anyway, there we go.
Yeah. So I mean, overall, I thought it was a positive show. Certainly wasn't the best pay-per-view of the year. I mean, some of the highlights and bright spots for me, certainly the Aleister Black versus Buddy Murphy match, I thought that was really good. I enjoyed the return of Daniel Bryan. Yeah. I thought the opening match between the Revival and the New Day was very positive. I enjoyed the main event as well, but especially with the outcome of the Kabuki Warriors going over in the main event. I also enjoyed Samoa Joe on commentary. Now, as much as I want to see him back in the ring, I do think he's definitely a very positive addition to the commentary team. And I'm quite enjoying him and Vic Joseph at the desk together. It seems quite a solid and coherent commentary team. You haven't got the ramblings of, well, I suppose you do still have the ramblings of Jerry Lawler, unfortunately. But you need a bit of dark with every bit of light, don't you, really? But I'm quite enjoying Samoa Joe on commentary, although it would be better if he was back in the ring, of course. But if the long-term future is him on commentary, then, there's worse things that could happen, I suppose. But what were your kind of your kind of everlasting memories of TLC? What would be the things that will kind of you'll remember this show by?
The Aleister Black match, and to be honest, the kickoff show match, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very good, and I probably actually remember the main event. I did like it. I mean, the tag match was good, but actually I probably preferred that one. Just because I thought they were beating the daylights out of each other, and I'd watch it again just to see if I can notice when she got hurt, if she got hurt. But the point was, I did enjoy it. I don't want to spoil things for you slightly, but I don't believe Samoa Joe's going to be on commentary anymore based on what happened on Raw.
I'm not privy to what happened on Raw, to be honest. We've been working all day and preparing for this podcast. Yes, please go ahead.
I believe what happens is that he stands up to AOP and Seth, and he gets powerbombed through a table. So I think if he can take bumps, he's able to work now. So because I mean, the end of the day, he was playing off as a face, wasn't he, on commentary? Because Joe by nature is actually quite a nice guy. He's not Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar is not a nice person, secretly in real life, where he's quite a nice bloke, and he came across that way. And I think they've turned him now. So, I mean, him feuding against AOP and Seth. I mean, you're gonna have Samoa Joe, Kevin Owens, and probably Rey Mysterio. That's a nice little triple threat, isn't it?
I'd be up for that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's what happened on Raw. So I think actually that was his even though I thought he was really good at commentary, and I think going back to that in the future would actually be helpful to him, because I mean longevity and all that, and if they don't give him the title run that he deserves, then that, if I was him, I'd probably accept that earlier just in case, because I don't know why he hasn't had a world title yet, but anyway, well, at least main roster, I should say.
Yeah. So, Jason, I think we've covered everything good, bad, and indifferent on TLC there. But I can't say goodbye to you without first setting you up for the challenge that is the 2-minute Brainbuster Quiz. So you've probably heard some of the other offerings to run through our leaderboard. Unfortunately, at the bottom is Mr. Kieran Reid, who scored 3 correct questions or answers in 2 minutes. And then this past weekend, we had Nick Towers, who scored a very credible 7 correct answers in 2 minutes. But top of the leaderboard, and can we topple him today, is Grizz, who was on the Wrestling with John's podcast a couple of weeks ago, scored 9. So he was asked, I think, 13 or 14 questions in 2 minutes, got 9 of those right. So really good response rate. So 9 is the score to beat. So the rules are very simple. I've got a list of questions here, and I will ask them as speedily as I can, making sure that I get the questions out as clearly as possible. You just need to answer as many of those questions as quickly as you can in the 2-minute time span. You can pass as many times as you want. My advice is give yourself a second or two thinking time, and if instead of passing, maybe give us an answer, because you never know, it could be the right one. But throw your hat into the ring with all and that's good about your wrestling knowledge. So how would you rate your wrestling knowledge in general then? I mean, you've been a wrestling fan for a number of years. Would you say that you've retained a fair bit of the information that you've seen over the years?
I'm a lexicon of knowledge. I don't know.
Let's see if that really score of 9 is under threat.
Light this up massively, so when I crash and burn, then after that it'll be very memorable at that point. There we go.
Okay, well, let's see how we get on. So let's make sure I've got my stopwatch at the ready. Okay, so the clock, the first question will be asked, and then the clock will start upon my first question. So the 2 minute starts now. Which ECW legend did Paul Heyman once call suicidal, homicidal, and genocidal?
Sabu.
Which wrestler won his second WWF Championship in 1994, 11 years after losing the title in 1983?
94. Bob Backlund.
Who is the current New Japan United States champion?
New Japan United States champion. Pass.
In what year were we introduced to the Shield at that year's Survivor Series?
2012.
William Regal debuted in the WWE or WWF in 1997, but what was his gimmick?
The Real Man's Man.
Which heel tag team did Alexa Bliss manage when she was in NXT?
It had Buddy Murphy and I don't know the name of it. Pass.
Okay. Who did the Young Bucks lose to in the opening round of AEW's tag team tournament?
Something party. Private Party.
Who was the first ever NXT North American champion?
First ever was Seth Rollins.
Which former Elite member made a surprise appearance at Saturday night's NWA Into the Fire?
Marty Scully. Marty Skull.
How many days was Pete Dunne the WWE United Kingdom champion for?
Oh, damn. 508.
Right, and that's 2 minutes up, Jason. So your time has expired. So you was asked. Oh, here we go. Yes.
Was it my phone a friend? Okay.
And there's no 50-50 or phone a friend in this.
Oh, no.
So you was asked 10 questions. Let's go through them. So,
Right.
So, question number 1: which ECW legend did Paul Heyman once call suicidal, homicidal, and genocidal? And you answered Sabu. Sabu was correct. Which wrestler won his second WWF Championship in 1994, 11 years after losing the title in 1983? You correctly answered Bob Backlund. Who is the current New Japan United States champion? Now, I think you passed on question 3.
I did.
The correct answer is Lance Archer. Now, Lance Archer won the championship after John Moxley couldn't get to Japan. I think that the flights were grounded, and I think that there was a championship match between Lance Archer and Juice Robinson, which Archer won, and he's now the US champion. Question 4. In what year were we introduced to the Shield in that year's Survivor Series? And you correctly answered 2012. So it was at the very end of 2012. So that's 3 out of 4 so far.
I'm doing the math now, I'm not sure.
There we go. So William Regal debuted in WWF in 1997, but what was his gimmick? He was the man's man, or the real man's man. Congratulations. Question 6. Which heel tag team did Alexa Bliss manage when she was in NXT? So you got half of it right. It was Blake and Murphy, but I don't think they actually had a proper tag team name. So I think you kind of passed on that one, so we can't.
I think Blake who then? Blake who?
Wesley Blake. He's part of the Forgotten Sons.
Right.
Now.
Okay. No idea.
And Buddy Murphy. Buddy Murphy was his.
They were engaged at the time, weren't they?
They were indeed. Yes. So question 7: who did the Young Bucks lose to in the opening round of AEW's Tag Team Tournament? You correctly answered Private Party. Question 8: who was the first ever NXT North American champion? So the first ever North American champion was crowned at NXT TakeOver New Orleans in 2018, and it was Adam Cole, baby. So he won that 6-man ladder match, if you remember, that opens TakeOver New Orleans a couple of years ago. Which former Elite member made a surprise appearance?
Sorry, 1 second. I thought you said who was the first ever... Oh...
North American
NXT champion. You said for North American champion.
First ever NXT North American champion.
Oh, okay. I missed that entirely then. Okay.
Yes.
Damn.
So,
okay, then I totally missed that one. Okay.
Would you have known the answer had you have?
Yeah. I totally. I thought you just meant who was the first ever NXT. Oh, okay. Never mind. Okay.
Because you answered Seth Rollins, didn't
Rollins. You? Yeah.
So I did say who was the first ever NXT North American champion.
North American. Sorry. Okay.
Yes, that's right. Question 9: which former Elite member made a surprise appearance at last Saturday's NWA pay-per-view Into the Fire? You correctly answered Marty Scurll. And question 10, we got up to: how many days was Pete Dunne the WWE United Kingdom champion? Of course, he beat Tyler Bate in that classic match in Chicago, and he was a UK champion for 685 days.
Way off.
He was. So let's count up the number of correct questions. So 1, 2, 3, 4.
We'll call it even
5,
80. That's all it is. We'll call it.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got 6 out of 10. So 6. It doesn't quite surpass Nick Tower from Saturday, or doesn't get us near Grizz's 9. But you're not on the bottom of the leaderboard. You're there or thereabouts. And the point is, you can always have an opportunity to better your score the next time you come on the Wrestling with John's podcast, Jason. So there we go. Congratulations, my friend. How did you find the quiz? Did you enjoy it?
Oh, it's fun. Yeah, of course I do. Yeah, it's great fun. I always love wrestling-related quizzes. That's the way to go, that is.
Awesome. Right, so Jason, that brings us to the end of this special WWE TLC review episode. Do you have any kind of any social media handles or anything you want to plug? Where can the listeners of Wrestling with Johners find you, or say hi if they want to get in touch with you?
Well, I mean, I'm still on your forum. I definitely with the Wrestling with John's Facebook page, and at some point there will be some kind of YouTube podcast of my film reviews. But that's watch this space. That's going to be next year, definitely.
There we go. We all look forward to that. And like I say, when you do set it up, let us know. We'll kind of support it and plug it on the show here. But there we go. So that's pretty much all from myself and from Jason. Please keep it tuned to the Wrestling with John's podcast for all of your weekly NXT and AEW updates, including WWE and AEW pay-per-view reviews and so much more, including special exclusive interviews. I've done quite a few in 2019 and many more to come in 2020. And if you've enjoyed listening to this podcast, please don't forget to spread the word. Tell your friends friends and tell your family. And don't forget to subscribe to the Wrestling with Johners podcast so that you don't miss out on a single episode. In the meantime, have yourself a great week. And from myself and from Jason, take care and speak to you all again soon.